Sometimes you just forget to do that. Anyway, once again, welcome back to World of Darkness, specifically Old World of Darkness, more specifically, Werewolf the Apocalypse. Even more specifically, Werewolf the Apocalypse, Heart of the Forest. Before we begin, though, I have to voice at least two things that are currently on my mind in regards to our streams. First things first, you've probably heard about a couple of instances where Twitch went after high-profile VTubers, banning them for offenses real and perceived. And this has me somewhat worried as to what my future on this platform will be. One thing that I can is to just move to either YouTube or, I don't know, Rumble. Rumble might not sit too well with some members of the audience on this one, so most likely it'll be YouTube. I'll have to do a test stream on YouTube to see how it handles itself, and we'll decide on whether we continue there or stay on Twitch. Now, in regards to the other thing that I had on my mind would be better to wait this situation out, possibly. Anyway, as I was saying, second thing that I had on my mind would be to figure out what software to use to cut out the parts of, well, unneeded parts of the Saturday stream so that I can upload it as a proper video on my YouTube channel. Because the free software that I previously used was only used for the sound recording, and that one, as you can imagine, is a little bit underwhelming in terms of file size. One free online software that I used can only take up to 500 megabytes before it asks you to subscribe to it, if you can imagine. Then again, I cannot fault them. So that is also the one thing I'll need to look into. Possibly sometime during this week before I forget or get distracted by any other things. Which reminds me that I'll need to write that down. I'll try to not forget to write that down during the duration of the stream because I got a pretty handy notebook on me. Notepad, that is. It fits in a pocket, but I always carry it around with me as either a memento or something that I can write things down into. Well, it helps a lot in some regards. However, I've said my piece on what has been on my mind for at least today. Therefore, now, let's go back to Werewolf the Apocalypse. Last time, if you recall, we were about 75% done with the game, so I suppose it will be done quickly. And then it's on to the more widely known Vampire the Masquerade. Not Bloodlines, mind you, not yet. And not until I find a mod that I like to go with it. Because, as we all know, the base game is somewhat... what would be the correct word? Somewhat lacking by this point in time, yes. Maybe I can go with either the community patch or the final nights mode, but we'll see. Anyway, yeah, Bare Bones is also a good board. Chapter 5, The Plan. I woke up in my bed in the B&B, and for a moment, though, thought the whole werewolf business had been a dream. Then I heard a giggle, looked up, and saw Anya looking at me with a grin. Girl, you sure know how to party. You were gone for 2 days. She shook her head. Was Bartek with you? He's not returning my calls. There was so much to talk about, I didn't know where to start. I'm alright, sorry for disappearing so suddenly, I said, because what else could I say? I don't think she's ready to learn the truth just yet, so... After the protest, I ended up at a party, I lied, and sort of lost track of time. I drank way too much, but it was fun. How should I handle the Bartek thing? I couldn't tell her that he was dead, that I killed him. I don't really know where Bartek is right now, I said with my voice trembling a bit. Anya looked at me like she sensed something was wrong. Let's get angry. I told you I have no clue where he is, I repeated, my rage suddenly flaring. Anya's lips started trembling and she locked herself in the bathroom, tears in her eyes. So, are you leaving? Asked Anya. What about your family history? I shrugged. Whatever the answer was, it was now Maya the werewolf's problem. Maya the student was dead. I'll be in touch. Anya hugged me. You'll figure it out. I sighed, took my bag, and left. I dropped my bags in the camp and ran through the plan one more time. They expected me to act like a philodox, but we also discussed other plans, both more sophisticated. Place of power. Theurge, spirits, rituals. Wolves Den, Galliard, stories, propaganda. Barrows, philodox, justice, retribution. I suppose we can act the part first of all. So let's go to the Barrows. With Olga's pack's local connections and Cornell's pack's technological wizardry, we followed the money and found out who was paying the loggers and security guards. Behind all the ideology and politics, it was all just business. They were cutting down trees because someone was paying them to do it. We decided to stop the money flowing. Punish those guilty of the logging. After a few days of stakeouts and preparations, we've identified our target and we're ready to move. We started with a kidnapping. We let him out in the middle of the forest. For ending, they will leave the forest after Cyclone Boris washes all the trees away. We'll see about that. Since our age is high, I took the lead. I yanked the bag off the man's face. Cornell lifted a flashlight and shined it in his eyes so he couldn't see us. The man reeked of fear and something dark and oily. I knew him. It was going to be a problem, because the man behind the local logging industry was Bartek's father. But that didn't matter. But our personal connection didn't matter. That night I wasn't a person but a philodox, Gaia's justice. The man whimpered and shielded his eyes. It was time to deliver my message. Here's the deal. You stop the logging, I explained as clearly as I could, and in return, you and your family can enjoy a safe future, one without strange accidents, fires, and misfortunes. He almost shat his pants. I could smell it, but he decided to play the tough guy. Fuck off, you bitch, he yelled. I'm gonna make your life a fucking misery. Just you wait. I know the chief of the police. I know MPs. You won't get away with this. Who do you think you are? Oh, I'll show you who I am, I said quietly. I felt Cornell tense by my side, but he said nothing. Just watched. Now, let's not do that right away. I'll take another hit to willpower. I took a deep breath and focused. And now, we change. Krinos is a bit of a overkill because it's a war form after all. So I think we can go with Lupus. I doubled down in pain. My arms and legs cracked and twisted. My skull fractured and reset itself in a different shape. Fragments of bones crawling under the skin. My skin was ripping and sprouting fur. I howled in agony. When the pain subsided, I was Lupus, a wolf, seeing the world in smells and sounds. I bared my teeth. I was down on all fours, growling and baring my teeth. He looked at me and saw the sudden change in his face. He was no longer afraid. He had a look of hatred and disdain in his eyes. A wolf? He said, suddenly angry. A dirty flea bag, a pest. He spat on the ground. I should have known filth like you would have a pet wolf dog. Not impressed, huh? Well, in that case... A flea bag? I thought as I changed. I was Hispo, the monstrous wolf form. Yes, I'm gonna skip the annotations of transformation. Let's bare our teeth once again. And then I lunged. He got to his feet and started to run, stumbling in the dark. Prey! Kill! My killer instinct kicked in and I changed. I was Krynos, the war form. Cornell is now disapproving of this sudden change. I feel rage washing over me like a wave of heat. I expand in every direction and yell at the top of my lungs. Cornell screams something, but I can't hear him over the blood thumping in my ears. I hit the man, and he dies. I am the rage of the forest. This man reeks of the worm, and I hit him with all the forest's fury. And again, and again. Until he stops. I hit him until he stops. Then I'm done. My body reset into the familiar shape. Bones broke and fused again, muscles and sinews moved under my skin. I cried and thrashed. Then I was human again. And then he was only a maimed, broken, bloody sack of bones. Without him, the local logging business would come grinding to a halt. For a while, at least. That one quick. Judge. You judged someone and found them guilty. I left him in the middle of the forest and never looked back. I couldn't wait for the Sept meeting that morning. Punishing the local lobbyist was my rite of passage, and I knew that I did great. I couldn't believe that I made it so far. We met soon after the sunrise in the same clearing where I woke up for the first time as a Garu. Lisa looked at us all and smiled. Our patrons were looking at her expectantly, so she stepped towards the center of the clearing. I am the Theurge of the Sept, and I'm here to make sure we do things the right way. She turned to me and quickly I held my breath. Maya, come forth. Are you a cub who seeks recognition as an adult? I am, I answered solemnly. Are you an applicant to a tribe? Lisa asked again. I am, I answered. Who speaks for the cub? Lisa looked at Septmates. I do, Cornell stepped forward. I'm blind prophet of the children of Gaia, Philodox of the Winter Weasel Pack. I observed the cub on her mission, and I'm here to tell the story. Do I have to take a new name? I guess they all had secret werewolf names. It made sense. A new life demanded a new name. But I also have to take a new name? Has the cub passed her challenge? Asked Lisa. I held my breath. I knew how it will happen, but I held my breath nevertheless. She succeeded, was the answer. The challenge was hard, and she overcame it. Have you chosen your name? Lisa turned to me. My new secret name. Suddenly I remembered my grandfather talking about his old friends. He never used their real names. They were always Thunder or Grey or Needle. I'd always thought it was a guerrilla thing, some kind of war names. Now I wasn't so sure anymore. How to capture my whole life, my aspirations, my personality, my heritage in one name. I cleared my throat. Skala, which was Polish for rock. My new name is Skala, a rock, I answered, imagining an anchor that would allow me to keep an unbiased judgment. As for the tribe, choosing a tribe was another matter. Black Fury, Child of Gaia, Glasswalker, Bone Gnawer. I'm personally leaning towards a Child of Gaia. Any other suggestions from the audience? In case you need a quick reminder, Black Furies are Amazons. Child of Gaia. Oh, Child of Gaia it is then. After getting to know both Olga and Cornell better, I decided to join the Children of Gaia. Rainbows and unicorns. You found your way in a peaceful tribe. Cornell agreed to mentor me. Only one thing remained to end the ceremony and make me a full-fledged Garu. I had to join a pack. I had already sworn to the Wolf Mother. Pack, Morning Wolf Mother. Winter Weasel, Cautious. As my fate had been already tied with the Wolf Mother, I chose her as my patron and joined Olga's pack. And so it was done. According to ancient rites, Lisa painted a mystical glyph of my tribe on my sternum. It disappeared after a moment, but whenever I closed my eyes, I could feel its warm touch between my breasts. Scala of the Children of Gaia, Philodox of the Morning Wolf Mother Pack. Welcome to our sept, she said solemnly. Then she howled. Howls rose towards the sky. They sang about ancient laws of war, status, and secrecy. I remembered only a few. Combat the worm wherever it dwells and whatever it breeds. Submit to those of higher station. Respect those beneath you. The veil shall not be lifted. I joined the song. Rank, Cleath. Goal, make your own legend. Honor, 3 out of 10. I threw my head back and howled with my sept. I was a cub no more. I was ready to tell my own stories, to earn my own place in the pack, to howl my own songs. Chapter 6, The Storm. It was one of those blistering summer days when the asphalt melts, the glass withers, and the air smothers those brave enough to step outside. Despite the heat, it felt like the whole village was at the funeral. It was moving. I stood there, surrounded by people weeping over their loss, looking at the rosaries they clutched in their fists. Something tightened in my chest. For a brief, chilling moment, I thought I saw Bartek's face among the crowd. But no, I buried him in the barrows myself, and nobody there even knew that he was dead. Bartek was not the reason we gathered in the churchyard. A local councillor had been found dead in the forest a few days after his son disappeared. There had been more deaths over the last few days, but they slipped under the radar. We'd been careful in covering our tracks. Or nobody had connected the dots yet. Did they die because they deserved it, or did they happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, in the company of someone who couldn't hold their temper? Was that justice, or yet another sin demanding to be avenged? I could feel the tension seething around me. This death, this funeral, had pushed the community, already wary and frightened by the recent disappearance in the forest, to the edge. The press had swarmed to the funeral like flies. They were reporting on how the illegal logging was a danger to both the ecosystem and human lives. The police were watching the crowd with disinterest as they leaned lazily against the trees. Suddenly, Puszcza Białowieża had become politically charged and the hottest place to be in Poland. And it wasn't only local politicians and activists from both sides who'd caught wind of the commotion. The Minister of Environment himself had driven to Białowieża to attend the funeral. He was standing next to the priest conducting the ceremony, surrounded by police and what looked like a handful of bodyguards. The coffin went down and the crowd stirred. Everyone started lining up to throw a handful of dust on the coffin or put flowers in the grave. I found myself face to face with Anya. I got swept by the crowd and found myself face to face with Anya. Everyone keeps pretending that he's just missing, but I know that Bartek is dead. She looked me in the eyes. He was such a cute guy, you know? I froze. It must be hard for you too, she patted my arm. If you ever wanted to talk, you know where to find me. I didn't know what to say. Anya shook her head. One more thing. I know you think you're helping, but have you ever asked anyone what they need? I looked over her shoulder at the crowd. It was clear that many people there felt that we were not helping. On the contrary. And the minister knew how to use that sentiment. I listened in disbelief. I watched in disbelief as the priest handed him the mic. He wasn't someone you'd call a good speaker. He repeated some platitudes, but it was clear he'd only come to show his face and tighten the leash on local logging companies. The crowd listened, silent. I realized the conflict was only going to escalate. He was determined to push on with the logging. What he didn't know was that the local loggers weren't being paid anymore, and the locals were on our side. It was high noon. The sun was at its most merciless, and the world was almost white with heat. The air smelled of herbs, bark, and tree sap. Insects buzzed lazily in the high grass, stunned by the summer sun. The day was stifling as we sat at the protest. The whole clearing was decorated with banners, and we all had our placards. The banner we'd hung on the National Park headquarters the week before was just a warm-up. Wood is the enemy of the forest was our main slogan. But there were many more. Let's try something constructive, actually. Make the whole Pusha a national park, demanded my sign. It was a viable solution. The whole Pusha would be protected and people would still earn money on tourists. There were so many of us. People kept coming to the camp, asking questions, looking for ways to help. Students, activists, even Greenpeace with banners reading "Stop logging and respect EU law." The only thing they'd done right so far. The Pusha was watching us. Every time a gust of wind was bringing the wet smell of the forest to my nostrils, I felt her strong, steadfast presence. She knew that we were doing everything in our power to save her. For centuries, my family served the Pusha, burning villages and hunting down people who dared to hurt her. And now, I was the last Garu of my lineage. What legacy did I want to leave behind? The pressure was almost palpable, and tempers were flaring. Everyone knows what to do? Olga asked, looking at my pack. I'll keep the security guards occupied, nodded Lisa. And I'll guard the Pusha's perimeter, growled Daniel. The weasels were in their position among the protesters, as agreed. That left the cops to me. It wasn't too late to negotiate. I think that we should keep talking, I said. It's not too late for a peaceful solution. Yeah, good luck about that, Olga nodded with a bitter expression. The police were nervous, huddling in groups and shouting at each other and everyone who was in their way. They clearly didn't want to be here. Something was up. It was apparent that they were waiting for something. It reached boiling point when the minister arrived for a photo op. I took it as a good sign. We could use his presence to our advantage. In more ways than one. Well, there goes our last bit of rage. I knew he was in for a nasty surprise. The reporters closed in on him, shooting uncomfortable questions about the legality of the logging and his forestry policy. In hindsight, you could argue that what happened next set a chain of events in motion that had life-changing consequences for many. But it all started centuries earlier, when the first wolf cubs were stolen in the morning. Wolf Mother asked my forefathers to help. Everything that happened next, the burning villages, my grandfather escaping to America, my mother running away from my father, my return to Bialoveja, was a direct consequence. The members of my sept had already moved into their positions, and I also had my part to play. With him at the scene, everything will get harder. I sighed, pointed at the minister. Olga nodded. But I wasn't ready to give up. Olga raised her eyebrow. If you think there is any sense in talking to them, she smirked, now's the fucking time. She grabbed me by the elbow and literally dragged me across the clearing to where the minister and his people were standing. I've got this, I said bluntly, yanking my arm free. Got a bit of rage back. I know what to do, I snapped at Olga. Stop treating me like a cub. You can't do anything, Olga replied. Just watch. Minister! Minister! She yelled. Do you have a moment to talk about what's really going on in the forest? He looked at us coldly, like we were vermin. His eyes were distinctly dark and lifeless, like a shark, I thought suddenly. No, I said, smiling. He said, smiling. We don't talk to terrorists. I put my hand on Olga's shoulder and felt how tense she was. Her muscles vibrated, resisting the change. It's not worth it, I whispered. We'll find another way. One last card up my sleeve, huh? There goes our willpower, then. Minister, do you know that all your local contractors deflected? I looked at the official in the eyes. It does not matter. He looked at me like I was a child. We could use foresters, we could use the Territorial Defense Force, but we won't have to. People have to ear. They'll come work for us. They have no other choice. But he didn't see that coming, and for a moment looked shaken. Then he composed himself and looked at me with disgust. think? How much would it cost? I looked the official in the eyes. Do you think he would still be a minister when it ends? I could see that he was an apt politician and that he could smell a deal for himself and all in it all. But I didn't really care, because I managed to get his attention. Negotiator. You stood for the peaceful solution. When the talk started, we weren't alone. After we'd stopped the local lobbies, we'd noticed locals coming to our camp to ask questions. At first, we were wary of them, but soon we realized they were genuinely interested in learning new ways they could coexist with their forest. So we started talking, and it became big. I don't know what tipped the scales in the end. The press, the international attention, the local interests coming together, our passion. Finally, an agreement was within our reach. But the talks weren't easy. The state forests, the woodworkers, the local population, ecologists, scientists, activists, everyone wanted something. It was by no means I was by no means an expert, but I wanted to play my part in the processing. So I joined the negotiations team. They could use someone unbiased, with an analytical approach. The talks went on and on. Everyone at the scene had their own opinion about and their own point of view, and I had mine. In the middle of it all was, of course, the spruce bark beetle. How could something so small cause such a gigantic uproar? The beetle had always been a part of the forest ecosystem, pointed out one of the ecologists. But the recent droughts made the spruce more susceptible than ever, the foresters countered. We have to cut down the trees to stop a total disaster. I saw one problem with this approach. I didn't trust the word that came out of the officials' mouths. The beetle was not a reason for the logging, it was an excuse. You fetishize the forest, scoffed one of the officials. People cultivated it for hundreds of years and it cannot survive without our help. He's right. You want to take our forest from us. A group of locals attacked the activists. You're not from here and you tell us how to live our lives. The problem was that human intervention unbalanced the ecosystem, and if they pushed it any further, they'd lose all that made that push unique. Opinions clashed, tempers flared, but eventually new, constructive ideas started to emerge. At least one of them caught my attention. Let's go with the original plan. The whole area should be the national park. Or we could go with a historical option. International observers could help because, surprise, surprise, this is based on a real-life event. Shocking, I know. And, well, technically we've already won over the local populace. So it's either the first one or the second one. Let's go with the second option. There was a proposition to form a committee of international observers, scientists and foresters, to make sure that the logging was targeting the spruce bark beetle problem only. It was a long and hot day. I rubbed my eyes. I was so tired I could barely keep them open. My head was spinning. But I kept going. What was a little heat stroke when so much was at stake? The talks continued. Of course, they had to make it dramatic. There were cameras, there were lights, and the negotiations lasted all day long. We reached the first draft of an agreement literally at sunset. I had no doubts. They'd only decided to stop the logging because they realized there was something in it for them. But at the moment, I just looked at the sky and laughed. I felt overwhelming relief. And then my exhaustion caught up with me. I found a quiet spot, sank to the ground, and fell asleep. Epilogue. Quiet before the storm. Told you it's gonna be quick. Cheering of the crowd woke me up. It was a victory after all. Hint, the logging stopped. Condition, healthy. We'd won. The push was safe, at least for the time being. People were excited, antsy, full of emotions. If the loggers hadn't left, they probably would have charged at them. But to my disappointment, now there was no one to fight, so I partied to blow off steam instead. Soon we were all dancing, talking, singing, and in some cases making out in the shadows. I had to stop someone from making a fire. I mean, for fuck's sake, we were in the middle of the forest during a drought. But my friends didn't join in the festivities. They just sat on the logs looking at the humans with wary eyes. I found my pack. We sat in the shadows far from the humans. Look at them, murmured Olga. Loud, messy, stupid. Tomorrow this place will look worse than if we'd let them do the logging. Look at the bright side. The trees are still standing, I smiled, and we'll pick up the trash tomorrow. I'm not here to pick up their trash, growled Olga, but there was a warmer glint in her eyes as she looked at the trees we'd saved. Olga looked at them for some time. Well, maybe with time they'll turn this energy into something more useful. I'll have to wait and see. I smiled, satisfied. Time would tell who was right. We gathered in the clearing in which I'd first woken up as Garu. Lisa stood in the middle of the clearing, the wolf and the weasel by her side. Now, she said, looking at Cornell and Olga, you two, you need to solve this. Today. Olga nodded. There was determination in her eyes. I didn't always agree with you, Cornell, but we could use your skills right now. That night, we planned the future. That night was long and full of hope. Olga talked with Cornell and Kim and Pat for a very long time, trying to convince them to stay in Bieloveja. They weren't fond of the idea. Somehow I managed to convince them. We'd been through too much shit together to just part ways like that. Lisa and our patrons made sure that we did right by Garu law and the Sept matters were resolved. But it didn't cover everything that had happened that summer, though so some consequences would have to unravel with time. Despite everything that had happened, Anya managed to get out of it all alive. She tried to help the push and work in activism for some time, but it's hard in a divided community. She left in the fall to study just as she planned. But it was all still ahead of me. For now, the first chapter of my new life was coming to an end. Goal, mystery, I learned my family history. I dug my hands deeper into my pockets. My family had fought the humans who'd invaded the forest for generations. And now there I was, making pacts of non-aggression with the loggers. Was I a traitor? Or was I the one who'd finally got it right? Your story is almost over. This might be a good time to take the last look at your character sheet. Let's do that. Name, Maya Skala Borodic. Age, 24. Profession, student. Nationality, American. Breed, hominid. Auspice, Philodox. Judge. Rank, Kliath. Young Garu not yet of any significant rank. In vampire terms, a fledgling. Tribe, Children of Gaia. Pack, Mourning Wolfmother. Renown, Glory, 1 out of 10. Honor, 3 out of 10. Wisdom, 0. Mind and body, relations. Pusha, friendly. Cornell, Lisa, Olga, Pat, neutral. Not stupid. Inexperienced. Because wisdom does not equal intelligence, remember that. Anya, loyal. Bartek, dead. Daniel, cautious. Family, it's complicated. Kim, sympathetic. Pusha, police and press, sympathetic as well. The clearing was empty and full of sunlight. The harvesters were gone, leaving the scars of their tracks behind. People were clearing up the campsite, making plans to turn the temporary protest site into a permanent tent town. The air was sweet and smelled of coming rain. The upturned soil smelled of turf and a sweet aroma of decay. There would be a storm later that day, I could feel it. A faint, sharp layer of electricity surrounded the wetness. I smiled. I liked my new sense of smell. This is not the end, said the ash-gray wolf. I assume you know that. Of course I knew. It was just a momentary break, a truce that both sides needed to regroup and reinforce. Yeah, I know. I sighed, looking around. There was a squirrel somewhere. I could smell it. I wanted to chase it, to run, to feel the thrill of adrenaline rushing through my veins. It mocked me from the branches above, squeaking curses in its squirrel tongue. I couldn't see it. An old friend. You were a good friend to the Pusha. And now we transform to Lupus, and off we go to chase the squirrel. So I ran for the thrill of it. Cubs, gather around the fire and listen to the story of Maya Borodich, known among the Garues Kala of the Children of Gaia, Philodox of the Morning Wolf Mother Pack. Her judgments were always honorable. Maya managed to negotiate a fragile peace and stop the harvesters, but would it hold? The first protests against the logging of Bieloveja forest took place in 2016. The game was loosely inspired by those events. All characters and events depicted in this game are entirely fictitious. Yeah, she got that dog in her. I will say that this is a very grounded story. Also mild jump scare because of that face.
терпел, я отрывал, я шагу подставлял, и воссиял по борьбе, большаки только две, господар не срывал, словно зло отказал, час пришел, час настал, стал я тем, кем я стал. Это моя дорога, это мой волчий знак, я не вернусь до дому, хай состоится так. Это моя дорога, это мой волчий знак, я не вернусь до дому.
And with that, we are done with this one. Well, obviously, you're free to get the game and try out different endings. You can escalate things, you can make them worse, you can probably even kill that Minister of Environment. All depends on the choices you make. And I will say, in regards to the World of Darkness stories, this one is very grounded. Because for one, there were no Pentex involvement in this one. And if you know werewolf games, Pentex is omnipresent as the avatar of the worm. Pentex is, by the way, a very fascinating corporation. You know, I might even pull up the information that I have on Pentex, courtesy of a couple of articles on 1D or Chan, because this is honestly a very great way to write a villain. There are, of course, other videos on that topic, which cover it in extensive detail, which I might even share the link to. So let's just quickly go over what Pentex actually is. What do you get when you take large corporations as painted by hippies and cross it with cartoonish evil? What, the villains from Captain Planet? That's true, but in Werewolf this end result has a name, and its name is Pentex. More of a holding company than a business in its own right, Pentex is everything wrong with modern businesses cranked up to 11. Of course, all of the mega corporations in our world have at least some skeletons in their closet, but Pentex takes it to the extreme. Its goal? Nothing less than the spiritual, moral, and environmental degradation of the planet for the glory of the worm, engineering a controlled crash scenario in which human civilization comes to an end, and Pentex alone survives to rule over the rubble. This is done in one of three ways: corrupting the world directly via pollution, selling worm-tainted products to an unsuspecting public, or by subtly altering the minds of humanity via metaphorically poisonous messages. Most of the people working for Pentex don't know any of this, or even that they work for Pentex. They're regular people doing regular jobs, but depending on the writer's Pentex leadership are varying levels of petty, exploitative assholes towards their employees, either unaware they're actively working to make the world a worse place, or just too cheated and desperate to care. Yes, there are actual skeletons in their closet. Those elements of Pentex who are in the know are all corrupted sooner or later. If they aren't already part of the big happy worm family like Banes or the Black Spiral Dancers, they can look forward to being turned into Fomori, horrific monsters warped by Banes into something more fitting to serve their master, and rather capable in their own right. Pentex is run by the secretive board of directors, 6 managing directors supported by 5 subdivision chiefs, all of whom directly worship the worm and are beholden only to their master and their peers. Notably, the Director of Acquisitions and Information Collection is at odds with the Director of Human Resources. The latter rather openly wants the former removed or dead, with the former being more covert with his plots to remove the latter. Then there's the likes of Harold Settler, the Director of Special Projects. He has been a monster for almost 4 centuries now, has overseen the production of the most horrific Fomori, and can keep them under the control with his terrible power. Settler's appearance with his blue icy skin, cold stare only interrupted when he remembers to blink, his unnerving way of talking and the rumors of him having been a cannibal, Nazi doctor, cult leader, serial killer, and far more and worse, lets him creep out even the most monstrous of his peers. This is likely helped by the fact that Harold Settler is a Malkavian anti-tribu of the 5th generation, well respected by the Sabbat, and rumored to be the same person as the ancient Harold of Settler, who alongside his cabal dove into the terrible secrets of dark thaumaturgy to aid their salubri allies to stand against the onslaught of the Tremere and their blood magics. Now we are naturally dipping into a bit of a Vampire the Masquerade lore there. If none of this makes sense, it will in a bit. According to legend, this ancient betrayed his cabal to the worm in exchange for the secrets of the path of the tyranny of the worm. A few of the ancient writings remain to this night, tempting kindred to infernalism. If these rumors are true, Harold Settler is likely a millennium-old Methuselah, one of the most powerful servants of the worm, and a kindred that even the Baali would be wise to avoid. He holds immense respect with the Sabbat, even with his rather limited participation within the Jihad. He has been offered the title of Priscus, a title he is considering. It's within his madness to spread the taint of the worm even more, but this would expose Pentex to the Sabbat, and he's lucid enough to not do so on a whim. Nobody on the board knows of this, and Settler is currently debating the issue with his only childer, Persephone Tara Annis, the Pentex Chief of Security. She further complicates the matter by being loyal to both Pentex and her sire, but does not care at all about the worm. On top of all this, Harold Settler also has given counsel to a subordinate regarding the various tribes of the Garou, and that's the video that I mentioned, or rather a series of videos, a playlist, if you will. To summarize, Pentex has a bit of a mixed reputation among fans of the game. On one hand, they make for great source of opponents for the more hack-and-slash oriented players with their first teams, and break into this Pentex building, steal anything of value, and wipe out the Fomori is a time-honored session goal. On the other hand, they are by none the biggest source of "rar, civilization bad" bullshit in the game. Every opportunity the writers get to use Pentex to beat the reader over the head with the evils of capitalist society, they will take. Even fans mostly on board with evil corporate assholes bad actually, get tired of it eventually. By far the most notorious of these attacks came from the source book Freak Legion, which had, and we swear to any god you want to name, this is not a joke, The Serpent Brotherhood. Evil Boy Scouts. Yes, you've heard that correctly. Evil Boy Scouts. I can go over Pentex subsidiaries at some point down the line, but for now, let's get into our Vampire the Masquerade blood set. I meant to say mindset, but blood set works as well. There it is. As mentioned previously, we are going to start the New York trilogy, which is, fittingly, a trilogy of games, specifically Coteries of New York, Shadows of New York, and, as of recently, Retribution of New York. All of these are also lighter on the game mechanics, and the text is prevalent, but it's not exactly a visual novel. Can't remember what the term for that one is. Not a kinetic novel. I'm not very knowledgeable on VM lore, if you can imagine. However, let's turn down the volume a little bit, like so. Dynamic backgrounds on, full screen on, dialogue options in the middle, sure. I'll leave the language at English, text size, medium, for all of our convenience. Everyone ready? Everyone ready. Off we go. Let's choose our clan. Bruja, the rebel against power and rage against authority. A seemingly insignificant man with significant ideas will join their ranks tonight. Then True, the aristocratic blue bloods embody wealth, sovereignty, and control. A top-level corporate executive will join their ranks tonight. Or Toreador, the divas seek thrills of art, romance, and cruelty amidst stagnant undeath. A tormented artist will join their ranks tonight. Now tell me, which one of these sounds more appealing? I got a feeling it's so appealing. No banana phone. The last time I tried out this game, I personally went with Toreador. So, you're free to go with either that one, or try out any of the other two options. Yeah, decisions. Ah, Bruja then. So be it. Default name, Eric. Sure, let's go with that one. New York taught me to believe in fate. Had you asked me about fate back when I was a human, I would have told you it's just superstitious bullshit. We're all designers of our own destinies. That belief shattered when the richest woman in the United States, the actual richest one, not a face you could have seen in the papers, of course, sank her teeth deep into my neck. It happened in the very same place you're standing in right now, by the way. Fate? You decide. Please, there's absolutely no need to be hostile. Just listen a little longer. See, my mistake was that I flew too close to the sun. Makes sense that my punishment was to never see its glow again. I was incandescent myself. Was hot shit. I had it all. Money, looks, confidence, connections, man, women, a career, and a spark in my eye. The one you need to be born. And that's when someone far too more powerful than me saw my radiance and thought, but that won't do. She robbed me of the light erupting from within and gave me a subtle, enduring gleam in its place. She decided that would fit me much better. She was a 9th generation kindred just like you, an apex predator. She probably enjoyed teaching me the peak of human excellence, my real place in the food chain. It's such an eyesore when you look at some loudmouth braggarts and see them for all they really are. The temptation to teach them a lesson can be unbearable, right? Well, my sire's lesson was a lesson about fate. A message saying, you're eternally doomed to be at the mercy of your sovereigns. It almost drove me to destroy myself. What saved me was the ability to reinterpret her teachings. Hers wasn't a message of doom. It was a message of hope. Fate exists, and one can shape it if given the right tools. By the way, give me a moment because I need to change the stream tag. We're no longer playing Werewolf the Apocalypse Heart of the Forest, we are playing Vampire the Masquerade, Coteries of New York. My sire didn't believe my tools were fitting for the job. She considered them toys, and me, just her amusing subject. Well, she's deader than dead now, and I'm still here, standing right where she stood when we first met. You might have wondered how I've learned about your arrival to JFK Airport. My answer is, of course, destiny. As luck would have it, today happened to be a day some of my associates were inspecting the coffins. Driving you here straight from the plane and having you wake up in such an unfamiliar place was a little desperate, and I do apologize for it. But it is so rare for you to visit New York. 3 times in the last 15 years, was it? And you were never eager to inform me you were here. I understand you still have that meeting on 53rd Street later tonight, so I'll provide a comfortable transport. I value our relationship very much, don't get me wrong. But it is precisely because I value it that I'm going to ask you to repay you the favor you owe me. You're the only one I trust to do the job well, and without attracting attention. You might think I'm crazy asking you to breach the rules of our society like this. You might think it's impossible to get away with it unpunished. But this is New York, and I don't know about other cities, but in this one, fate really exists. And right now, it's smiling in your favor. This is how it begins. The music is pounding, and your pulse is keeping pace. This is one of those nights that makes you feel alive, even though it started with you feeling dead. First came the messy breakup, then the realization you have nobody to talk to about how much it sucked. Still, you decided to roll with the punches. One Facebook search for local events later, and you found just the thing for your malaise. A short subway ride, and you find yourself at a club just outside Dumbo. Not a fancy one, mind you, more like a slightly refurbished warehouse. But hey, at least the drinks are cheap. The DJ seems to really know his shit too, alternating between cutting-edge industrial techno and classic Detroit crowd pleasers, expertly feeling out everyone's mood. An hour passes, then 2. Usually you'd feel awkward coming to a place like this alone, but tonight you'll find something soothing in joining the crowd, blending in, even as you allow the beat to take over. Sweat, yours, other people's, soaks through your shirt and pants in a matter of minutes. A thought pops into your head. From the outside, the fully packed club must seem like a stuffy, smelly nightmare. But here, in the thick of it, it becomes exhilarating. And you're not even on a pill tonight. There's this Latina chick whose curves are accentuated by the light dress clinging to her body, and she keeps bumping into you. Something tells you it only seems incidental. Yeah, it's a good night. You wish it could last forever, because you know all too well what the next day holds. Waking up, getting dressed for work, the commute, the 9-to-5 grind that will make you just enough money to pay the rent and keep living in your overpriced shithole of an apartment. And with Jessica moving out, it'll all be out of your pocket. Run some quick calculations in your head and immediately come to regret that you did. Never mind. You spot the Latina again. She's now next to another guy, hitting it off. Your chance of not going to bed alone? Gone, just like that. Fuck. Your mood temporarily shut down, you leave the dance floor and stumble your way into the filthy bathroom. You take a look at the mirror and start to wash your face, obsessively. Over and over again. A voice from the past echoes in your mind. I've never felt like this with anyone. Seriously, I mean it. I feel like all of my relationships up to this point were just test runs, a shitty way to compensate for my low self-esteem. But this feels right. Finally. Shut up, Jess. This was the craziest fucking day of my life. God, give me a smoke. Pass me a light. What do you mean cops took a lighter? There's one in your mouth. Just shut the hell up. This is not you. Not anymore. Oh, fuck off. This is so like you, acting like some sort of Clint Eastwood wannabe when I really, really need you to open up. You think you're impressing people with this tough guy act? Fuck you. I know how broken you really are. You need therapy. Yeah, now that sounds like the Jessica of today. You raise your head and look in the mirror. You try to smile, but all you can muster is a self-pitying grin. Most likely the expression that Detective Dubois carries. And there she is, the Latina from before. She says you look like you need a drink. You hesitate for a second or two and then blurt out a surprisingly enthusiastic, "Yeah." You start to talk. It quickly becomes evident that she's into politics and you're eager to please. You might be a corporate drone, but you spend a lot of evenings reading theory, actual theory, not bastardized Twitter cliff notes, and organizing for all manners of causes online. The status quo sucks. There must be something better. She agrees. You seem to subscribe to the same progressive political theories, have compatible ideas about the DSA's missteps, and even watch the same YouTube channels. Your goals are aligned. Oh no. Are we le leftist? Then again, we are a bruja. We're anarchists by nature, then yes. She's a bit more radical than you'd have guessed. You attended a few rallies, been to a few protests, but this girl sounds like she broke her share of faces and kicked more than a couple of cops in the nuts over the course of her activist career. Her zeal is infectious. She taps into pent-up anger that you didn't know you had. The noisy club stops working for you both, so you hit the streets. Just as you're leaving, the DJ starts playing All the Things She Said by Tattoo. Of course. You chuckle to yourself, try not to slip into a bad headspace. She chuckles along with you. It's a chilly outside, but soon enough you find yourself too invested in listening to the girl's voice to care about anything else. You realize you've been holding hands for a while. The subway car is empty, save for a stoic middle-aged couple and a drunk staring intently at his own feet. Plenty of room to stretch out. And yet, she sits right next to you. You can feel her thigh pressing into yours, her breath on the side of your neck. Maybe it's the booze talking, but you distinctly hear your voice asking if she'd like to crash at your place. "I've got a better idea," she says. At this point, you're down for anything as long as it lets you spend just a few more minutes with her. She takes you to a sleazy motel in the Bronx, trading a few words with a balding, tired-looking guy at the front desk. He hands her a key. Still holding your hand, the woman leads you up the stairs. The room you end up in is almost comically stereotypical, complete with flaking paint and a sticky floor. Not that it matters, though. The moment you step through the door, she's on you. You try to take the lead, but she's having none of it. Before you know it, you feel the rickety bed pressing against your back. It's sloppy, fun, fierce. And not once does she lose the initiative. Your hands reach under her t-shirt. Strange. It didn't look like she was cold outside, but now her skin feels eerily cool. As if sensing your confusion, she slaps your hands off of her. She kisses her neck. You're overwhelmed by the sensation. Darkness. The taste of liquid fire and smoke on your tongue. Her voice saying, "Sorry, kid, but I did what I had to do to leave this city in one piece. But don't worry, with my blood and your principles, you're gonna do just fine." She slams the motel room door behind her as she leaves. Wow, almost like a bloodline's opening. Except our sire is not dead. Yet. You lie helpless on a soiled, pungent mattress for some time. Minutes? Hours? Before you can focus enough to try and piece together your evening. It hits you. The big hunger. It grips you by the throat and makes your insides shrivel in terror. It's an all-encompassing emptiness that throws you on all fours. You crawl for a while, squirm on the floor in sundering pain, then jump to your feet and bust out the door. You black out. This isn't the room you saw when you last closed your eyes. Somebody curses at you. A small, naked, buff dude holding a short leather whip. Wow, what a goofy motherfucker. He throws a punch. He yells out several slurs. He hits you in the jaw. You black out again. The guy isn't moving anymore. There's blood on his neck. There's blood on his arms. There's blood on the floor. There's blood everywhere. Wow, whoever did this is one sick puppy. You realize you're sitting on top of his corpse. You hear a whimper. Someone else is here. A woman. Her arms are tied to the bed frame, an eye mask over her face, red marks on her back. This time, you see it happen. You want to stop but can't. She almost manages to get a scream out, but it dies in her throat as you bite into the side of her neck. You drink. Blood. You're drinking blood. You could swear you feel her life force escaping her body, entering yours. Suddenly terrified, you tear away from her. She's not moving, but she's breathing. There's barely a mark on her neck. The guy on the floor, though... You double over in a spasm, realizing that you did. You feel like throwing up, but can only gag. Panic sets in as another realization dawns on you. Your heart is not beating. You put 2 fingers to your wrist, but feel no pulse. Same thing on the neck. Nothing. There is no breath coming out of your mouth. You have to get out. Get someone to call an ambulance. For yourself, at least. Probably too late for the dude on the floor. Did you really kill him? Disc. What a mess. You look up. The door to the room is ajar. A tall, handsome, broad-shouldered man fills the entire frame. He brushes an imaginary speck of dirt off his perfectly tailored suit. Hey man, you gotta help me. Call 911. So that you get arrested and reported as a jail suicide within the next 24 hours? Because that's the only way that plays out, son. He surveys the room, not moving an inch from where he's standing. He shakes his head in mock concern. Murder, assault, that's 25 to life if you're lucky. But since you're not, it's a death sentence. He takes a glance at his expensive-looking watch. Lucky for you, it's been a slow night. Otherwise, I might not have gotten here in time. Come on, the sun comes up in a few hours. You don't want to be around here when it does. What's it matter when the sun comes up? Ah, so you don't even know. You should be glad I got here before you made yourself scarce. The man approaches you and starts talking. His tone remains unnaturally calm. Oddly enough, you find it both soothing and slightly unnerving. Now listen to me. I know this is all new to you, but I've dealt with hundreds of strays like you. And going by experience, they tend to fall into 2 categories. First, they're all the smart ones who carefully obey my every word and don't try to pull off anything stupid. I always get them where they need to be, safe and sound. And then there are the dumb ones. The punks who thought they could take me on. The wise guys who tried to contact somebody secretly and without permission. The troublemakers who tried to run off or make a scene. None of them got to their destination in one piece. In fact, most of them never reached their destination at all. His voice becomes slightly bored and monotone. You can tell he's given this speech before, likely dozens of times. So you see, while I generally consider myself pretty smart, I'm also a Mets fan. It's my one true weakness, one that inspired me to come up with the 3-strike system when dealing with pups like you. If you get on my nerves once or twice, well, I understand. Not all of us perform well in stressful situations. But cross me 3 times, and you're out. No excuses, no forgiveness, no mercy. As he's talking, he slowly approaches you, adding a bit of a theatrical swagger to his walk. Eventually, he leans in, deliberately invading your personal space. You realize it's a test. He's daring you to do something about it. 3 strikes, and you're out. Say, I understand, sir. Now. You've never been too eager to bend the knee to anyone, but this is something else. The man's very pessimistic presence instills a primal fear in your heart. I understand, sir. Glad we have an understanding. Moving on, is there anyone you'd want to inform of your current situation? Tell them you're all right. He flashes his fangs briefly, and for some reason, the sight sends a chill down your spine. There's something very wrong about him. Someone closest to you? Jessica, my ex-girlfriend. She kinda hates my guts, but yeah, I suppose it would be her. The stranger gives you a puzzled look and decides to prod further. The closest person in your life hates your guts. This time something resembling a look of pity. He turns his eyes to the corpse on the floor. When it rains, it pours, I suppose. Well, if you'd like to ruin her day and let her know you are all right, give me her phone number. I'll have someone take care of it. Discreetly, of course. You hand him your smartphone so he can copy the number from your list of contacts. Thank you. This will be useful in illustrating my next point. Instead of giving you back your phone, the man hides it in his pocket. From this point on, you are subject to different laws than the ones you grew up under, and you'll be watched by many eyes to ensure these laws are respected. You are forbidden from letting anyone know you're still alive. You are forbidden from showing your face anywhere they know you. If anyone comes looking for you, it's over for both you and them. He interrupts his monotone recitation and stares deep into your eyes. So unless you want your girlfriend to end up at the bottom of the Hudson, I'd suggest you cooperate. He proudly displays his fangs again. You've put Jess in danger. God damn it. I can only hope that you care for her enough not to do anything selfish. His words are meant to imply otherwise, but by now it's obvious. He hates your guts as much as you hate his. He's itching for a fight, and you're almost willing to oblige. Alright, I think that's enough lecturing for today. We're in a bit of a schedule here. Now, I don't need to hurt you, but I can do so in the blink of an eye. Just so that we're clear, I have the authority to end you right here, right now. This is not an idle threat. So are you going to play along, or do we have to do it the hard way? Let's play along. You weigh your chances, but it doesn't look promising. The guy's fit, determined, and looks like he means business. You, on the other hand, are confused, exhausted, and on the verge of a panic attack. Yeah, fine, I'll go with you. He almost looks disappointed. A wise decision. Follow me, please, and close the door behind you. You take one final look at the woman who's just coming to. The body on the ground. This is fucked. Absolutely fucked. You pull the handle and close the door. The man leads you downstairs. You contemplate signaling the bald guy at the front desk, but he's too busy watching some 90s action flick on a small ancient-looking TV. He seems totally oblivious to your presence. You hear a dejected Jean-Claude Van Damme say, "I just want to go home," as you're walking by. Your would-be kidnapper stops by the door and addresses you before opening it. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, as soon as he opens the door, I'm making a run for it. Maybe I can outrun him. I'll save you the trouble. You can't. You can either get inside my car, and I'll get used to where you need to be, or you can try something stupid that you'll regret later. Do I make myself clear? Clear as day. Day, huh? He opens the door and gestures to a black Cadillac Escalade parked right outside the building. After you. Following the stranger's instructions, you make your way to the car and get in the back seat. The door locks behind you. Inside, the Cadillac is almost entirely dark. The side windows seem light-proof. The man gets in the driver's seat, starts the engine, and drives away without another word. This is the afterlife, isn't it? You're not entirely wrong, but it's not what you think. He weighs his next words carefully. You'll have to forgive me. I'm not in the mood to wax poetic about the state you're in or my role in tonight's events. Just remember, if you want to survive the next 24 hours, you'll have to play along. This is all a fucking nightmare. The stranger smirks. Understand that this is for your own good. Times being what they are, you should consider yourself lucky. You drive in silence for about 20 more minutes. As exhaustion catches up with you, the streetlights fade into a blur. Eventually, the car stops and the doors open. You emerge from your dreamlike state and find yourself in some kind of underground parking garage. You two are the only ones here. The man points to a nearby door. Go on in, make yourself comfortable. If you get hungry again, take a look at the fridge. I'll pick you up tomorrow and you'll get your answers. Behind the door is a small room. No windows, just a simple bed and a single light bulb hanging from the ceiling. A small fridge is humming away in the corner, accompanied by a rattling AC fan in the wall. I guess I got no choice but to trust you? It took you this long to figure out? Remember when I said you were lucky? I meant it. See, my job is to get rid of problems, but I'm not always this polite about it. This time, I was specifically told to mind my manners. So believe me when I tell you, considering how this night could have turned out, being stuck in here for a night is a really good deal. Now get in, or I'll throw you in. You step inside. The stranger nods. Good night. He closes the door behind you. It looks sturdy, but as he's locking it, you notice claw marks all over. Looks like some previous guests weren't satisfied with their stay. You decide not to dwell on it and check the fridge. There's a single plastic bag there filled with red liquid, no label. Tomato soup? You feel sick to your stomach. Best to leave it for now. You lie down on the bed. It's a simple mattress on a metal frame. You can't feel but think it looks exactly like the one back at the hotel, with a bound woman. Oh, right. You killed a man tonight. Or did you? Maybe none of this is real. Maybe it's all an elaborate prank. The girl at the club just might have put her up to it. The tall guy is clearly in on it too. Now he's back with them and they're all laughing their asses off. You don't know what to think anymore. Your mind races, but you're too tired to keep it going. Finally, you tense up one last time before drifting away into oblivion. You wake up. That in itself is a surprise. You barely remember when you drifted off. It didn't feel quite like sleep, more like plummeting into an endless void. You imagine that's how death feels like. The room is unchanged. The lamp is still on, the AC is still rattling, the refrigerator is still humming. You take a look at your watch. It's almost 9 p.m. You've slept for 17 hours straight. Maybe you died. Your breath is gone and you feel no thumping in your chest. Does that qualify as dead if you are still conscious? You're not sure about that, but you are certain about one thing. You're hungry. It's not your stomach rumbling, though. It's a need that starts somewhere in your abdomen and spreads to your chest, throat, and back of the head. You open the fridge. The bag is still there. You take a closer look at it. If it is soup, then its color and texture are off. You pull the cork out, take a whiff. You recognize the smell immediately. Holy shit. There is no mistaking it. It's bagged blood. The smell is faint, and you remember some situations in the past where you found it nauseating. But now it's almost... No, not almost. It's enticing. It feels wrong, but right now there's barely anything in your life that doesn't. To hell with it. You pour a bit of the liquid into your mouth. It tastes bland. Reminds you of cheap supermarket juice. Just enough flavor to register as what it claims to be on the box, but nothing like the real thing. Nothing like what you had the last time. You swallow it. Somehow you don't feel sick. In a weird, messed up way, you can't help but think it feels nourishing. You take a few more sips, and then just another one. Suck on the bag a little more. Eventually, you find that you're emptied it entirely. You look at the info pressed into the side of the bag, 450 milliliters of it. Even with its blandness, you still feel like having more. You realize your body longs for that intoxicating high you felt when an image of that corpse crosses your mind, causing you to wince. What have you become? You try to piece your thoughts together, make sense of it all, when you hear the locks click and see the door open. Standing there is the well-dressed stranger you have met yesterday. Immaculate suit again, a predatory look like a hawk on a hunt, but somehow more relaxed tonight. So like a tamed hawk, maybe. Good evening. Slept well? He notices the discarded, emptied bag. I see you had a bit of a snack. I did. Got any more? No, and don't expect sustenance to be this easy to find the next time. Come on, we've got places to be. The car is humming on the empty parking lot just outside the door of the cramped room you have spent the day in. The man motions to it politely, but with a stern look on his face. I'm trusting you here, man. I'm touched. Sincerely. You take the back seat again. The doors lock, the stranger takes the wheel and starts the car. You drive in silence for a while. From time to time, you keep trying to catch glimpses of familiar streets or landmarks through the blackened windows, but it's of little use. The car is also soundproofed, so all you can hear is a bit of a traffic humming in the car's engine. The driver doesn't say anything and seems focused on the road. You check the door handle. Yeah, the door is locked all right. A piece of dark glass separating you and the front of the car looks sturdy, too. There's nothing left to do but wait. You didn't have time to think about it before, but you realize now that you are hungry? No, not exactly. It's not a rumbling stomach that grabs your attention. It's a need that starts some... well, read that one before. You try to extract some information out of the man behind the wheel, but you realize you'd prefer to bask in the afterglow of your last meal. You wouldn't have expected it, but you spend the rest of the trip lost in your thoughts. A lot of them concern blood. It takes you another 20 or so minutes to get to your destination. As the door opens, you try to get your bearings. You're still in New York, that much is certain. Queens, maybe. After me. No sudden movements, please. You approach a nice-looking building that houses a two-story gallery called the Art Hall. Two large men in suits flank the door on both sides, and they give you your companion a nod as you approach. Prompted by the stranger guiding you, you walk inside. The gallery is full, which is unusual at this hour, to say the least. About 24 faces fill the showroom, and a number of waiters navigate the gathering, serving drinks. All of them are beneath the guests' attention. The visitors are well dressed for the most part, but it's unclear what they have gathered here for. Nobody seems to be particularly interested in the art pieces on the walls, and the atmosphere is polite. Unnaturally so. Many guests turn to look at you and the stranger who brought you here. Their glances are varied. You see open contempt in a few faces and animated interest in others. Most of the eyes in the room calmly observe you, as if wishing to appraise your worth. The last time you felt like this was at your previous job interview. It was like being a piece of livestock, inspected from all sides by any imperfection so your wage could be haggled down. It was dehumanizing and made you feel dirty. When they called you the next day to offer you a job, you declined. Even when you're a nobody, you become even less if you trade away your dignity for a paycheck. The memory makes you feel warmer inside even now, although the state of your bank account never did. Good evening, Kadir. And to you, child. The noble, cold voice takes you out of your head and back to the situation at hand. The gallery, with a crowd of strangers. You being brought here against your will. For what purpose? The room awaits your response. Good evening, miss. You are addressing the Prince of New York City, Helene Panhard, child of Michaela. Thank you, my sheriff, but I'm capable of introducing myself. She is somewhat plain-looking and doesn't seem to possess a great deal of charm, but still, the entire room is intently focused on her voice. She has influence over these people, that much is clear. You may address me as Prince, child. I realize your introduction into unlife was abrupt, and I understand your sire left shortly after. The rules of our society dictate I punish you for both of this transgression. A murmur of agreement, maybe, can be heard from the gathered audience. But I am willing to listen to what our loyal sheriff has to say about the circumstances of your embrace first. Remain silent. That's the smart choice. You decide it's best to stay silent and listen to the whole situation unfold. It feels like you're out of your depth here. Shall we begin? You're about to be judged by the court of New York City. Kadir, please tell us how you found this fledgling and what happened on your way here. Court? Prince? Is this some kind of secret society make-believe? A trusted informant who has chosen to remain anonymous at this time tipped me off about a suspicious kindred appearing in one of our domains. Upon investigating, I found them gone, but this fledgling remained in their place. The hunger made him savage a prostitute and his client in a Bronx brothel belonging to one of the ministry. I have already spoken to Sansarik about this and made sure it'll blow over. Regarding the fledgling himself, surprisingly enough, he offered little resistance last night and cooperated on our way to the safe house. I was pleased to not have to force his compliance. We had a quick chat, but wishing to appear here post-haste, I urged him to join me, which he did without struggle. Again, a pleasant departure from my usual routine. His thirst partially slaked with the bagged blood we kept in the safe house, we had a pleasant enough drive here. The story ends with us arriving at Elysium tonight. All eyes are on you again. You take a special interest in one of the faces. It's a beautiful woman with curly, almost blood-red hair and a dress to match. You see her whispering to some bespectacled man with an absent-minded look on his face. Who is she, you wonder? Thank you, Kadir. I take note of this fledgling's behavior, and I will take it into consideration later. She turns her attention to you. First, there is the matter of your sire, the person who brought you to where Kadir picked you up from last night. Who were they? A Latina woman, very radical unless she convincingly lied to me. She was special, extraordinary. She had fire, conviction, temper. She seduced me, easily in fact. Made me think she wanted me. I fell for it, and now I'm here. It feels awkward talking to a room full of strangers about what seemed like a random one-night stand at a time. Not to mention that even though the Latina made an impression on you for sure, her face is already fading from your mind. You realize she never even told you her name. Well, Kadir, does that sound familiar? No, it does not. Or at least not familiar enough. I will continue the search after we're done here. That chick, she rented out a room at the motel. Talk to the receptionist. He might know something about her. Unlikely. But regardless, thank you for that observation. I will investigate this later. What shall I do with the fledgling, my prince? What is your recommendation, my sheriff? The traditions are clear. Thou shalt only sire another with the permission of thine elder. If thou createst another without thine elder's leave, both thou and thy progeny shall be slain. I am ready to fulfill my duty. Stay your hand for just a moment longer, Kadir. I wish to consult my counsel on this. Make sure everyone is in agreement. Of course. He seems strangely relieved. The prince leaves the main showroom, and a handful of people follow her out. You're about to ask this Kadir what all that talk of traditions and councils was when the red-haired woman approaches the two of you. Sophie. Sheriff, I was wondering if I could have a word with the fledgling. What for? She lowers her voice in response. Come now, Kadir, we all know what the verdict is going to be. Let me speak to them. You might not have to stay in your hands tonight after all. Her words grab his attention. His face is hard to read. It's like several emotions are struggling for domination. Anger, sadness, hope, gratitude, resolve. I'll go get my sword. He steps out of the room the way you came, and you are left in a showroom with a woman in the red dress. She takes you aside, and the eyes of the remaining guests follow you. Well then, fledgling, you're in quite the pickle. Wait, did I hear that right? What did he say about a sword? Your hearing isn't faulty. We only have a short while before the prince hears her counsel out and Kadir returns here with his blade. So listen, please. Last night you became a vampire. Wait, what? Oh yes, I'm well aware of how ridiculous that sounds. It's the reason why we have these nice rewards for it. Kindred, being embraced, having a sire, the fact remains. The being called vampires, you're looking at them. They're us. You glance around. Some of the guests are still occasionally looking at you, commenting on you in hushed tones. Many of the patrons are pale. Really pale. Most hold glasses of wine. No, not wine. That's not the right thickness, and not the right color either. You're trying to come up with something sensible to say, but you are drawing a blank. It makes a morbid kind of sense. You drank blood last night, there's no denying it, and your breathing has not returned. Your heart remains still. A vampire. Two voices in your head start battling for supremacy. One of them slowly begins to put everything that happened since yesterday together, coming to a conclusion that no matter how insane it might seem, nothing but what she's saying makes sense. The other voice just keeps saying, what the fuck, on repeat. You're surprised. This is often how it plays out by design. Kadir deliberately keeping you in the dark and all. If we do nothing, you will be cut down as sure as day follows night. But I am here to offer you a chance, a way out, under one condition. I will take it under my wing. If you're lucky, the prince will be in a good mood tonight and your deference to Kadir will work in your favor. She might agree to this, but only if you swear fealty to me. I am not making this offer lightly. As your patron, I will take responsibility for you. Your actions will reflect on me. If they reflect negatively, well, I will make sure you face the consequences. So let me get this straight. You'll make me your servant, in exchange for my life. That's the deal? If you insist on putting it in such pedestrian terms, yes, that's the deal, as you so eloquently put it. The alternative is, I fear, final death at the hands of Kadir. Here, tonight. Steps and hushed voices can be heard from the side room. It seems the prince and her council are returning to the showroom. Kadir appears from downstairs as well and starts walking towards you. When you hear the verdict, ask to be spared. I will intervene. Remember my condition. She flashes a heart-melting smile towards Kadir, who does not smile back. The sheriff's immaculate suit is now complemented by a curved, oriental-looking metal scabbard, fastened with a colorful sash around his waist. It would look vaguely ridiculous if it wasn't surprisingly intimidating first and foremost. Kadir takes his place next to you and observes as the prince takes center stage again. Loyal kindred of the New York City Camarilla gathered here tonight. I have made my decision regarding this fledgling. She briefly addresses you. I want you to know that this was not an easy decision to make. For your part, you have not done anything to earn our ire. I do feel a genuine sorrow for what must be done. We are all keenly aware that these nights we need to close our ranks and trust the wisdom of our elders and their traditions more than ever before. There is no place for tolerating dissent when our very existence is under constant threat. Although I acknowledge some of my council's divergent opinions on this, she takes a look specifically at one of the people who left the room before, a rather plainly dressed, shy-looking man whose skin has a somewhat healthier tone. He bows his head in deference. I hold the final authority over this fledgling's fate, and I declare that while their embrace might be the side of responsibility, in their absence it is their progeny that must be punished. The sentence is final death, to be resolved presently. Kadir? You hear a scraping sound and see that the sheriff has unsheathed his curved sword. It is a beautifully detailed blade which you expect must be worth a small fortune. Its apparent sharpness makes you freeze up. 2 outs, bottom of the 9th. His quiet mumble is audible to nobody but you. As his eyes meet yours, you note just a hint of sadness in his countenance, one that quickly vanishes to give way to grim determination. And he is out to bat. You will not get another chance to speak up. You make a choice. I am not going down like this, damn it. Spare me! Prince, if I may ask you to stay at the sheriff's hand for a while longer. Kadir looks at the prince, awaiting her response. The sword is still hanging above you, threatening to fall at the moment's notice. Is there something you'd like to say, Miss Langley? Yes, if I may. At first, the prince looks somewhat annoyed at the distraction, but she stays quiet for a while, measuring the mood in the room. The bored elites suddenly look at you with aroused interest, some of them dismayed at not seeing the bloodshed, but all intrigued by the unexpected twist. The prince nods. Well, let's hear it. Sophie takes a few steps forward. All eyes are on her now, but Kadir's heavy hand on your shoulder makes it clear you won't take advantage of the distraction. My prince, while the traditions are clear, I believe that the proper context should be observed in addition to the letter of our laws. This fledgling is a burden, but with proper guidance, they could become an asset to our domain. Am I to understand you're volunteering to take this sireless child under your protection? Yes, I happen to think they might hold a potential that would be unfortunate to waste. I do expect their full cooperation, of course. Whispers can be heard again. An incredulous voice or two. A hushed, just behead this fucker. Some suppressed exclamations of surprise. Silence. I ask all of you to make a note of this moment. I might be persuaded to bend one tradition in this child's favor, but another will have to be enforced even more firmly in its stead. Until thy progeny shall be released, thou shalt command them in all things. Their sins are thine to endure. Are you certain that's a responsibility you wish to shoulder, Miss Langley? I am willing to guide this fledgling and add a valuable ally to our sect in a time of need, yes. But I would like to receive the right of destruction over them, if it pleases you. Remain silent. It's clear tensions are high. It feels surreal to listen to strangers discussing your death, or second death apparently, and keeping silent. You decide it's for the best to let Sophie handle this alone and not interject. You have no idea how to handle this eyes wide shut crowd. The prince looks at you as if weighing your worth. She takes another good measure of the room before she speaks again. I shall grant you what you ask. Let it be known, Sophie Langley of the Clan of the Rose will become this fledgling's patron. They shall be considered like sire and child. Miss Langley will take full responsibility for them, and I grant her the right of destruction, if she sees fit to use it. Let my intentions be clear, however. If I'm to turn a blind eye to one of our most important traditions in this occasion, I expect it to be beneficial to the Camarilla, substantially so. I hope you find this verdict satisfactory, Miss Langley. Of course, Prince. Thank you. Very well. She turns to you. What is your name, child? Eric, Prince. She nods. Welcome to the Camarilla, Eric. Dictionary updated. The Camarilla, a major sect of vampires devoted primarily to maintaining the Masquerade through the influence and manipulation of mortal society. Now, this evening proved to be even more eventful than I anticipated, but with the fledglings' fate decided, I believe our meeting here can conclude. Fledgling, a newly created vampire, still under their sire's protection. Thank you all for appearing on such short notice. Give my regards to those who couldn't make it. Kadir, a moment of your time before I let you return to your duties. Of course, Prince. Prince, a vampire who has claimed a given expanse of domain as their own, generally a city, and supports that claim against all others. The term can refer to a kindred of either sex. He shoots you a side glance that doesn't leave much space for interpretation. You will be watched, you will be judged, and if need be, you will be punished. The two of them leave the gallery. Well, Eric, I think we've both already managed to significantly improve each other's evenings. But let's keep the ball rolling, shall we? I think we should have a toast to our new fruitful partnership. She raises her hand at one of the well-dressed concierges who have now reappeared in the showroom to refill the guests' glasses. The conventionally handsome man approaches with a carafe, or carafe, of red liquid. No idea how to pronounce that word, unfortunately. He pours it into two tall glasses. It's blood again, that much is clear. You're in two minds about drinking it, but the memory of last night's hunger makes you wince. You take a tentative sip. The hunger, the urge to feed. For vampires, the hunger replaces all other drives with its own powerful call. You expected the same blandness you tasted a few hours ago, but this one you can actually savor. It's smoky and warm, making you think of a cozy cabin in the woods. It does strike you as a strange image for your mind to jump to when drinking human blood, but it is what it is. You've never tasted anything like it. Do you like it? I think NYC caterers have very bourgeois ideas about what good blood should taste like. Apologies, you must have so many questions. While we're on the topic, perhaps we should start with those related to sustenance. I feel this hunger constantly. How much do I have to drink to make it go away? The sad reality is, it will never go away. No matter how much you drink, you will always be tempted to have more. Unless you consume someone wholly to the last drop, paying for temporary relief with their life. But there is a one-way road to losing your humanity. Best start by just taking a single sip from a vessel. Be prudent. Hot, fresh blood will be more satiating than most anything they serve in a fancy glass. But it can make you more voracious. Vessel, a source of blood for sustenance or pleasure, primarily mortal. Or as some people derogatorily call them, blood bags. As to how much you should have, it depends. If you're frugal, you can survive many nights without a single drink. But it's risky, and will tempt the beast that is part of our curse. The beast. The owod drives and urges that threaten to turn a vampire into a mindless, ravening monster. Tomorrow, I shall take you hunting and we will explore this topic further. The blood you're having tonight should be enough to keep you happy for now. That beast you mentioned, is that a metaphor or... Oh, it's quite real, although not in a strictly physical sense. It lives in all of us, our nature and hunger manifest. Those more religious among us connected to the biblical Cain, the rage of the first murderer, cursed by God, seething in all his descendants. Cain, a mythical figure considered to be the first and most powerful vampire. Some vampires refer to themselves as Cainites, members of the race of Cain. I, however, am a child of the Enlightenment, not that it makes my struggle any easier. I have to be wary like every other kindred in the city and beyond. Kindred, the Camarilla term for vampires as a whole or a single vampire. According to the rumor, this term came about in 15th or 16th century, after the Anarch Revolt. Individual kindred each have a unique relationship to their beast. What yours is going to be remains to be seen. But you do need to keep it under control. Each outburst endangers you, not just you, but also the Masquerade. The Masquerade, the habit or tradition of hiding the existence of vampires from humanity. Designed to protect vampires from destruction at the hands of mankind, the Masquerade was adopted after the medieval Inquisition claimed many kindred unlives. Also, what do you know, the Inquisition really was useful for something. The concierge returns, asking for permission to intrude, which Sophie gives with a polite smile, and leans in to whisper in her ear. You know that the gallery is now almost empty. I'm being told the gallery is just about to close, but we still have quite a lot to discuss. We'll go down to one of my apartments. My jalopy is waiting downstairs. Come. The smile she puts on makes you remember the way you felt with the Latina. It's not arousing, though. More like magnetic. You find it hard to argue. Even though you're still suspicious of her authority over you, her charm momentarily wins you over. Sophie leads you to a luxurious silver Rolls-Royce and invites you to sit in the back. The chauffeur, a broad-shouldered, clean-shaven, middle-aged guy, starts driving immediately. Where did we leave off? I believe I started telling you a bit more about our customs. You've heard the prince refer to our traditions. The chief among them is the Masquerade. As you might have gathered from us assembling a niche gallery after closing time, our comings, goings, and doings tend to be somewhat secretive. We do not advertise our existence. We allow myths and modern fiction to morph and muddle the facts, so to the vast majority of kind we remain bedtime stories and pop culture icons. Kine, a term for mortals, largely contemptuous. The phrase kindred and kine refers to the world at large. Everything. Say, is that one television show about a vampire angel still popular? You shake your head in confusion. She shrugs and continues talking, looking a little bit more dejected than before. Very absorbed by this. Well, that's good to hear. Actually, let me take a brief break. I'm gonna need to take a sip of water because my throat is feeling parched. Let's get back to it. Feeling refreshed already. Our clandestine ways help us remain safe, allow us to explain away the occasional trip up to the irrational minds of the 21st century humanity, and dictate much of our interactions with mortals. So, like, what are the perks here? You're a vampire, but you need to keep quiet about it? What's the point? There has to be a flip side, right? Don't get me wrong, we have power. Immense power, influence over mortals. Immortality has its benefits too, of course. But we have many enemies, and some know our weaknesses well. For one, sunlight burns us. That's why we rest during the day. You felt it. More like being dead than being dormant, isn't it? But we have no choice. We're night dwellers, but day sleepers. Some more folk-related threats are just legends or occasionally a minor nuisance. Garlic, running water, even religious symbols don't repel us, unless the wielder is uniquely pure and godly. Stakes through the heart, though, that's something to avoid. They do not destroy, but they do paralyze, which, under the right circumstances, can often be the same thing. That's a reason to have somebody like my trusted driver, Gregory, making sure we're safe when you drift away. We have many enemies, and they often know their advantage lies in daylight. Am I right in thinking that having a human friend or two is necessary then? At least useful? In moderation. At best, if they don't know your true nature. Also, I would say that subordinates are useful, but friends, I haven't had one of those for many years now. Our little sect supplies social interactions aplenty, but it doesn't really encourage friendships. Alliances of convenience to be broken at a whim, yes, that's more like it. Sect. A group of vampires arguably united under a common philosophy. The two most widely known sects currently populating the Midnight are the Camarilla and the Anarch movement. Why is Sabbath absent? You'll find out later, because this is based on Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition. Long-term solidarity does occur in the Camarilla, but we are a very politicized organization by necessity. Loyalty is to your sire, to your prince, and to the sect. Friends must remain a distant major priority at best for us to maintain the Masquerade and thrive as the years pass. With age comes authority. With it comes influence and power, if you wish to reach for them. She seems to be lost in thought and falls silent for a while, leaving you to ponder all the things you've learned tonight. It still feels absolutely unreal, but as piece after piece of knowledge falls into place, the image becomes almost like an entirely logical jigsaw puzzle. Whatever you wouldn't believe on your own, you've witnessed. Many questions swarm your thoughts, but the one you keep returning to is what you place in this new reality should be. The car stops. You're in the city, in front of an old but well-renovated apartment building. We're here. Would you like to see your lodgings? I get my own apartment? That's neat. Consider it the first of many gifts that I'm able to grant in exchange for loyalty. Come upstairs. She leads you through a small hall with a night guard who greets Miss Langley with a good evening, and you take the stairs up to the second floor. Sophie opens the door to room 209. Inside are all the amenities you could expect from a modern apartment, and some you wouldn't have deemed necessary just the previous night, including thick blinds on the windows. The back room has a comfortable-looking bed and a thick steel door with several sturdy-looking locks, but no windows. Well, how do you like it? This is great, thank you. I'm glad. Make yourself at home. Tomorrow I will take you hunting and discuss the blood in more detail. I'll let you get comfortable. The keys are by the television set. I will come pick you up tomorrow night. Use the back room for rest. You can lock the doors, just in case. It stings a bit when she leaves. It's like the room suddenly became a few shades dimmer. You inspect the kitchen, hoping to find something to drink. Nothing. No regular food either. Feels strange that Kadir could be a more thoughtful host than your new sire, even if only in that respect. You briefly wonder if the sheriff might have a hidden side. Sheriff. The sheriff ensures that the traditions and the decrees of the prince are obeyed, hunts down violators, and delivers just punishment. In the case of minor violations or known enemies of the Camarilla, the sheriff is usually authorized to act as both judge and jailer or executioner. But when it comes to greater offenses, they will deliver the accused to the court to be judged. With nothing left to do, you lie on the couch with a TV playing in the background for company. Columbo reruns. Kojak reruns. President of the United States got himself into serious trouble again. The President of the United States got himself out of trouble again. Remember 2016. Pundits start yelling at each other about things that seemed a little bit less significant just 2 days ago. You start drifting off, reflecting about another night of confusing conversations and worldview-shattering revelations. How many more before you finally understand what happened to you and what you are supposed to do now? You keep coming back to the life you left behind, the people you should contact, the things you want to pick up from your apartment. You wonder whether when you'll have the chance for either. As you start to feel the insane tiredness that made you drift into cold sleep last night, you settle in the back room. The bed is comforting, the lack of windows less so. You leave the light bulb on. Looking at it, you realize it's the closest you'll ever come to staring at the sun on a breezy summer day again. A wave of melancholy overwhelms you. A few minutes later, your consciousness fades and you take the plunge into darkness again. Sinking, 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 sinking. I do need a good rest after that. Hunger is at the heart of a vampire's existence. To ignore it is to tempt the beast to take over in its desire to feed. To overindulge in feeding may threaten the masquerade while staining what humanity you have left. In Coteries of New York, having a high hunger is indicated by a progressively thicker bloody frame around the screen, like the one you see now. As your hunger grows, so does this indicator. Your hunger may increase when you call upon your vampiric powers or when you need to mend your wounds after a fight. When your hunger reaches the maximum level, you will receive a warning after you complete a piece of the story. Ignore it at your own peril. Some choices might only become visible if your hunger is high enough. Similarly, with high hunger may block off some choices, as you will be able to see after pressing continue. See? To decrease your hunger, you will need to feed. Whenever you see a feeding opportunity, you can take the risk to hunt and slake your hunger. You will need to keep the hunger at bay if you are to uphold the masquerade and survive the nights that await you. You open your eyes. The bed isn't warm. The room is filled with artificial light from the ceiling. The solid metal door is closed. Normally you'd stretch for a bit. On some mornings you'd probably throw the quilt over yourself and snooze a moment longer. But that was before. The way you woke up now, you are fully conscious. No grogginess, nothing weighing you down, just a nagging need in the back of your head. Hunger. Not as severe as the last time, but unmistakably there. You get up and open the door to the main room. A digital clock on the TV shows you the time, 9:04 p.m. You walk over the blinds and retract them cautiously. The only light coming from in is NYC's artificial nighttime luminescence. So that's what your waking hours are going to look like now. You missed the sunlight already. You're seriously considering just walking out of the apartment and figuring out this all by yourself, but then you come back to the memory of Kadir's exotic sword being raised in the gallery. Maybe sticking around isn't that bad of an idea after all. You keep jumping channels for around half an hour and then switch to streaming services. Almost as if the universe had a sense of irony, you catch True Blood in the flood of recommendations. The doorbell rings. It's Sophie. Good evening, Miss Eric. Slept well? Like a dead man. Curious wording, but not that far from the truth, I suppose. No use dwelling on it. I think you will agree with me. I think you will agree, with time. You made the right choice yesterday. I can teach you many things about yourself. Your blood, its desires, and its power. And we'll begin tonight. You are hungry, yes? I'm sure you are. Our kind always is. There is only one remedy, the blood. The drinks we had yesterday at Elysium are not the usual way you slake your thirst. Elysium, a place where vampires may gather without fear of harm. Court functions in Elysium are strictly kept apart from mortals and surrounded by secrecy, but the Elysium building itself could be a public museum, a gallery, or a club. Berghain is an anarch Elysium. The Louvre is a Camarilla Elysium. So tonight I will assist you on your first foray into hunting. You need to learn to sense the kind of blood you desire, to understand how you can use the kind's vulnerabilities to your advantage. So let me get this straight. We're predators, humans are prey. It's pretty grim. I know what you feel. I remember the notion. But you will inevitably grow beyond it. You need blood to thrive, but there are many ways to take it, some more humane than others. You will find that drinking moderate amounts of it regularly will keep the hunger and the whispers of the beast away. You might think yourself monstrous, but there is a balance to be found here. The kiss gives the kind pleasure. You might remember this from your own embrace. Some can even become addicted to the sensation. But if you do it right, they tend to misremember your feeding. After all, vampires do not exist. They're myths, fairy tales, and pop culture mainstays. Correct? She gives you a sly, knowing smile. That is why the masquerade is so important, and even more crucial when you feed. Biting people leaves marks, right? And the victims remember your face. You shouldn't concern yourself with leaving marks. These are easy to conceal. You just need to bite carefully, and then lick the punctures closed. That's all there is to it. As for being remembered, like I mentioned, the kiss is an ecstatic experience, so kind can barely recall the details. And even when they do, the city is enormous. You could spend days on the streets and not see the same face twice. Use that to your advantage. Feeding from the same area repeatedly can be dangerous, but by branching out, you risk the ire of other kindred on whose domains you trespass. Luckily for you, NYC is more forgiving in this regard. New York is in somewhat of a unique position. Many of its neighborhoods remain contested or unclaimed. The reason for this is a lesson for another time, but keep the following in mind. Take opportunities to feed when they present themselves these upcoming nights. As long as you hunt cautiously and respect the masquerade at all times, you should be fine. To wit, I want you to join me for a trip tonight. Come downstairs, Gregory is waiting for us. The busy street fills the air with traffic noise, pedestrian chatter, and a mix of smells that disorient you momentarily. These warm bodies contain what you want, what you need. You catch yourself. Did you really just think of these people as mere sources of blood? It takes a nudge from the Sophie to break your train of thought. A driver opens the door for her and then tips his hat to you, gesturing to the back of the car. The car casually joins the somewhat thin New York traffic. It's still busy in a way only one of the biggest cities in the world can be, but compared to the daytime commute, it's a pleasant drive. You barely have the time to gather your thoughts and formulate new questions before the car comes to a stop. You're among the tall skyscrapers that make up Manhattan's iconic skyline. Come, Eric. Park the car, Gregory, will you? The driver just nods and Sophie gets out. You join her, and the two of you walk through the glass doors together, then take the elevator up. You first notice an empty stage with the instruments of a string quartet still in the back, then take in the few dozen chairs in front of it. The concert seeming concluded, the patrons, all smartly dressed and posh, have spread out all over the hall. Sophie strides confidently inside, produces an invitation from her purse that she flashes in front of a security guard. You follow close and are let through without issue. Let's start easy. A social setting like this one would usually prove quite challenging to an inexperienced kindred, but consider this evening a small gift from your patron. I'm hoping to procure for you a willing vessel. Just remember what I told you about taking small sips. This one I have a soft spot for. Don't damage her. Now let's see here. There he is. She notices somebody in the crowd, flashes a heart-melting smile, and suddenly, even you feel drawn to her. You haven't thought about it before, but it's laid clear before you in this moment. Sophie is beautiful. Just looking at her is a privilege. Just being with her makes you feel elated. Everybody in the crowd, but especially the man who's almost tripping over himself to reach her, clearly agrees. Edgar, I'm so happy to see you. How is your daughter? Is she with you? Oh, there she is. Julie, my girl, come over, please. There is somebody I'd like you to meet. The young woman who walks across the hall can't be more than 19 years old. It's clear from her mismatched earrings and the partially faded purple hair dye that she doesn't fit this crowd. Julie, it's Eric. I think the two of you should get acquainted while I talk business with your dad. Awfully boring stuff, I assure you. I'm positive you'll like each other. The girl gives you a shy smile and nods towards the balcony stairs. You follow, somewhat unsure what is exactly Sophie expects you to do. You reach a secluded place from which the entire lobby is visible. All eyes are on Sophie. They listen intently, then laugh when she does. Julie saves you the trouble of figuring out the next step. If you're with Sophie, then I guess you're, you know. She puts her wrist to her lips and gives herself a theatrical nip, then looks to you, embarrassed, but also hopeful. Yes, I do. She takes off her jacket, unbuttons her sleeve, then rolls it up. You see a tattoo of a cat in an astronaut suit, one feline eye winking at you. There, just enjoy. Don't mind if I do, of Brand Ramona flowers. A perfectly awkward smile and a blush. You take a forearm in your hands. A quick look around confirms nobody's watching, and no security cameras cover this area. You bite down, gently. It's surreal. She's just given you her blood of her own volition. How is this possible? What about the masquerade? You need to ask Sophie. Your thoughts disappear amid the bliss. There's just a taste. Sweet, fresh, sanguine. You drink. And drink. And drink. No, stop. You tear away from the girl harder than you wanted. Still, the bite leaves just tiny punctures. Almost as if by instinct you lick them clean, and the two nose holes become concealed, just like that. Julie is now leaning on the wall, pale, wobbly on her feet, but happy. She lets out a dreamy sigh, opens her eyes, a few tears fall into her shirt. Tears of joy. Thank you. Please, can you walk me downstairs? Please. My dad, he doesn't know. Thinks it's a condition. Miss Langley told him so. She leans on you and requests you walk her over to a bench. She takes a seat and smiles at you. The crowd around Sophie disperses slowly. Looking at her now, only some residual awe hangs in the air. Yes, she is pretty, maybe even beautiful, sure, but not your type. What came over you before? You walk over to her. Edgar, dear, it was splendid talking to you, but we need to get going. Give Julie my best wishes. Come with Eric. Gregory is waiting for you out front. It's only in the car that Sophie addresses you. I can tell from your look that you took the opportunity. Good for you. That girl's exquisite, don't you think? You wouldn't tell by her demeanor, but she has so much passion. It brings out a unique bouquet in her blood. This feels all wrong. I feel like I violated her, like I took advantage of her. Oh, please, spare me your dramatics. I'm sure she was happy sharing herself. She's such a sheltered girl. Let her have fun from time to time. Time for the next stop. Training wheels off, this time. Gregory, Flushing Meadows, please. The driver takes the car over the Williamsburg Bridge. You settle your thoughts. Flushing? What for? Other than the fact that Unisphere is beautiful at this time of night, it's a great hunting ground in which to try out some of the talents of the blood. We all have our talents. Some of them come from the legacy we inherit from our sire, others can be learned with experience. I can sway people to or make them fear me. I see more of the world and in greater detail than some kindred. I can will my body to move with unparalleled precision and grace, and more. All of these skills make me who I am. They also help me hunt. Okay, so what are my talents? Time will tell. You will need to discover them yourself. When we arrive, experiment. Give different things a try. Follow your instinct and intuition. It will guide the blood. Always keep the masquerade in mind, however. It's all fine if you can disappear in plain sight or command animals with your mind, but save those overt talents for the right place and time. It only takes you half an hour to reach the park at this time of night. Both you and Sophie leave the car, with Gregory left behind again to find a parking spot and keep an eye on the car. Sophie seems deep in thought. She takes in the surroundings with a dreamy gaze. The sky is surprisingly clear tonight. The stars just barely visible in the light-polluted aura of the city. I feel like having a snack myself. I'll be by the fountain. Go, look for somebody to your liking. See what effects you can achieve with your own blood. But only pick one victim. Just one. Then come back. Seeing how she seems not altogether here right now, you decide to leave Sophie to her own devices and seek out your prey. From here it looks like you have a few choices. Just taking a stroll around the park and finding an isolated jogger or someone like them could work, but focusing on one area might work better. The New York State Pavilion might work as a secluded spot. There's a skate park nearby, and worst case scenario, there's bound to be some unfortunate wino around. Or maybe the tennis courts nearby. There's lights coming from there, so somebody might be still playing a late night match. They won't be alone, but they might have been tired and let their guard down. As these scenarios play out in your mind, you realize you're planning how to assault a stranger in the middle of the night. It's a weird way to be, but now the familiar hunger prompts you to act. Honestly, let's hunt near the decrepit pavilion. You make your way to one of the park's most well-known landmarks, the round skeleton of the New York State Pavilion, with its two vaguely futuristic-looking towers. You don't get lucky with the skate park. It's not deserted. Instead, a group of skaters is gathered there, talking loudly and listening to music playing out of crackling smartphone speakers. Deciding to have a quick look around, you identify a potential victim. A sleeping bag lady leaned back on a bench, a shopping cart full of what looks like trash nearby. One of these might be the opportunity to take. Let's grab one of the skaters' attention and show off our vampiric powers. You think back to what Sophie did in the hall, how she managed to focus the attention of the entire gathering on her. That might be a tall order for you, but a single person could be doable. You single out a guy who's talking his phone away from the gathering. He's having a heated discussion with somebody. A relative? A partner? It's not going well. This talk's over. I said shut the fuck up. Hey, you hear me? Shut up. Call me when you get some fucking sense into your stupid brain, okay? He ends the call abruptly and almost throws the phone into the ground in frustration. Rough night? He's got an angry expression on his face and tears welling in his eyes, but he gives you a curious look and even a bit of a shy smile. Yeah, you can say that. What's up? I got something that will put a smile on your face. He takes a few steps forward, away from his buddies who remain totally oblivious to what's happening, but you see your influence fading. You take a chance and lunge. Your fangs sink into his exposed shoulder. He shivers and lets out a moan. His phone hits the pavement and you hear the casing crack. His blood tastes like a clash of the hot emotion and melancholy, laced with some artificial stimulant you can't quite place. An energy drink? A recreational drug? It's a strange mix. You hardly have the chance to savor it, as the proximity of the skater's friends makes you feel vulnerable. You hastily finish drinking and drag the guy over to the pavilion. When you turn around, you realize you're not alone. A hooded man is looking menacingly at you. What do you think you're doing, barging in on my turf like this, Lick? Lick, a derogatory term usually used to address young, inexperienced vampires. Didn't mean to trespass, sorry. I'm going. Too late for that, friendo. You wanna leave here in one piece, you talk. Candidly. I know what you are, so you can shove that Masquerade misdirection up your ass. Now better tell me who you're with before my posse shows up and we beat it out of you. Chill out, I'm with a Camarilla. He does anything but chill out. He immediately tenses up but gives you an extremely nasty look and bares his fangs. You the Ivory Tower cunts, huh? Well, well, well. Tonight's my lucky night. Ivory Tower? Another name for the Camarilla, as you probably guessed. I'ma fuck you up and bring you to the Callahan. You'll have some fun breaking your shins, and maybe by the end of it I'll get to have a nice long sip. Wonder what do you taste like, Lick? He does his best impression of Hannibal Lecter's at a nice Chianti shtick, but he is not as intimidating as you thinks. You take off. Fast. Faster than you've ever run. The hoodlum has trouble keeping up, but howls behind you like an animal and gives chase anyway. As you reach the Unisphere again, you slow down, noticing two people near the sculpture. A man and woman tangled in a passionate embrace. No, not exactly. It's Sophie, feeding. But this whole scene is set up so that it looks like a couple getting intimate in public. She pulls it off like she's done it 100 times before. It occurs to you that she probably has. The man is unsure on his feet, and she lets go of him and leads him towards a nearby bench. Noticing you, she whispers something into his ear and leaves him. Her driver appears from behind a tree. Well, Eric, how did it go? You're about to answer when the same figure as before emerges from one of the alleys. He looks at the three of you, and a predatory smile creeps onto his lips. You thought you could run away from me, Lick? Think you'll be safe with your friends? Well, I have friends too. He makes a motion to shout, but two things happen almost at the same time. First, that feeling of warmth and beauty emanating from Sophie flares up again, entrancing you both and the hooded thug. His shout comes out as a weak, confused squeak. Second, Gregory produces a wooden stake from a holster under his jacket and slams it into the thug's chest. Just like that, in a few seconds, the posturing vampire is down on the ground, paralyzed. I see you've made a friend, Eric. Curious choice of company, I would say. Who is he? He said something about presenting me to somebody named Callahan. Ever heard of him? She looks shocked for a split second, then recovers her regular countenance. Yes, I have. This hoodlum is Eric, then. Curious. Corona Park has not been claimed by any kindred last I checked. Let's go to the car. We'll put him in the trunk and present him to Kadir tomorrow night. I'm sure he'll be delighted to make this unbound's acquaintance. Gregory carries the staked vampire and dumps him in the car's trunk like a mannequin. It's a strange sight, and you're quite happy you're not in that poor fucker's shoes right now. It's almost surprising that you can get away with just casually throwing a stiff into your car and driving away. But then you remember that Sophie has been doing this far longer than you have. Still, the nagging thought that anything you did tonight could have been recorded on a CCTV camera or picked up by a rando with half a decent smartphone and streamed online fills you with dread. Yeah, he fucked up. Hunting and using your abilities is a dangerous business. It's clear that this whole being a vampire thing has about as many caveats as it has perks. You're taken out of your headspace by Sophie's voice. I will pick you up tomorrow night, same as tonight. I have some business to attend to at Elysium and I expect you to accompany me. Plus, our friend in the back needs to be properly introduced to Kadir and the prince. I'm sure he'll have some interesting things to say to the court. Her voice is cold, cruel, and nothing like the enchanting personality she showed at the gallery earlier tonight. Sophie is clearly a woman of many faces. Oh yeah, I can imagine he's going to enjoy meeting Kadir. I hope he gives him a good grilling. The guy's an asshole. Oh, Kadir will enjoy it too, I'm sure. She pauses, seemingly lost in thought for a while. You haven't told me how your hunting went. Getting the hang of it, I would hope? I think I am, yeah. I'll cope. I'm glad. She doesn't question you further. She seems distracted, not all there. Her thoughts drift and the car remains silent until you reach your apartment. We will pick you up tomorrow evening. Good night. Just like that, without any further courtesy, Sophie leaves, driven to her apartment by Gregory with the body in the trunk. Right in the middle of Manhattan. Did you cross paths with situations like these in the past unknowingly? What other secrets did you pass on the streets without knowing their true nature? Your haven is just as you left it hours ago. Although the sun won't come up for some time, you feel tired. You learned something about yourself today, and it'll take time to process. You're not in the mood for television, and the few books on the shelves in the apartment are either in languages you don't speak or sound like a boring read. Nothing left to do but rest. You settle in the back room, lock the door. A moment of hesitation, but then a decision. This time, you turn the light off. You think back to Julie. How many people in this city know about this vampiric society? How many are willing accomplices in sustaining it? And the thug you met in the park. If he is not Camarilla, then what is he? Are there independent vampires? How does that work? More questions. You begin wondering if there's ever going to be a night when you can start crossing them off the list, instead of adding to it. You close your eyes. You sink into the now familiar void of nothingness. It greets you with open arms, like an old friend. You open your eyes. It's pitch dark here, the blackness of a coffin, drifting in the abyss. Oh, right. The light. You grasp for the switch, flip it. The familiar, cramped room with a steel door and no windows comes into view. You emerge from the bedroom fully awake, just like yesterday. This time, however, Sophie is waiting for you, comfortably seated in the sofa of your room space. In your living room space, a book in her hand, The Melancholy of Resistance. The title is sure on brand. Yeah, I think it's time to call it for tonight. This has been an exhausting but a pretty good stream, if I do say so myself. I'm glad that you've enjoyed it as much as I did. And the writing is definitely there. I can see that they're borrowing some moments from the Bloodlines introduction, but they're pulling it off nicely. As good as I remember it. I did mention I've played through it once already. Shadows of New York is pretty good as well. Once we'll get to it, you'll see. And the third part will be a surprise to all of us. However, at this point, I'd like to thank you all for coming, and I will see you all tomorrow. And yes, actually, that was on my mind as well. Do bring over your friends. Never mind the fact that you're from Transylvania. They will enjoy it. Good night. Sleep tight. And see you all tomorrow.